Hi guys, I'm going to talk to you guys about the Roman Empire. Read it. This is the PLP lesson over the Roman Empire, and more specifically, it's going to talk about Augustus, and it's going to talk about the change of religion from polytheism, which is many religious beliefs, to monotheism, to the belief in one God. So, poly meaning many gods, mono meaning one God. So we're going to talk about this. As always, before we start our lesson, I'd like for you to look at the questions. So the questions that are going to be answered are: gladiators were often selected from, according to the Romans, a person with discipline, strength, loyalty, possessed the virtue of. The blank was the period of peace and prosperity in Rome. And which of the following best describes Rome's religious beliefs? So as I'm reading through this article, please look for those 4 questions, okay? All right. So the Empire of Rome. This right here is a statue of Augustus. Augustus, also known as Octavian, ruled Rome until his death in 14 CE. He demonstrated real power through his Imperium Maius, or great commanding leader of the military. He stacked the Senate with his partisans, meaning that the traditional function of the Senate was no longer legitimate. So let me explain what that means one more time. So when he says he stacked the Senate, what that means is he put people in those higher up positions that would go along with what he said. So if he wanted to go and conquer a new land, if he wanted to go to Africa and rule, if he wanted to change the money system, if he wanted to change the belief system, if he wanted to do anything, he would put these people in power in the Senate, so that way when he wanted to do things, he wasn't met with any resistance. Okay, so this idea of democracy, whenever we have an emperor, really kind of goes south, because the traditional ideas of having checks and balances isn't happening when he's putting people in office that support his decisions. Okay, though the Senate continued to exist and function, it did so without real authority that it had possessed during the Roman Republic. Using his personal wealth, Augustus funded major public works in Rome. He also attempted to restore traditional values and morality. During the Roman Republic, grace and beauty had been hailed as Rome's traditional values. Augustus valued gravitas, which was a Roman virtue that consisted of the following: discipline, strength, and loyalty. Let me highlight that sentence again, because hint, 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 you'll need that. Gravitas is very important, because, like I said, this, despite the wishes to restore traditional Rome values, he promoted this. So even though, he is, stacking the Senate, even though he is making these decisions, he is wanting families to exhibit discipline, strength, and loyalty. So really wanting to build the idea of power behind the Romans. The value embedded in gravitas helped to boost the empire's trade and military, but it did not emphasize grace or beauty. So Augustus' management of provinces resulted in Pax Romana. Hint, 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 Pax Romana. The period of Augustus's rule gave the empire stability and brought about an end to the constant civil wars. Pax Romana, time of stability, an end to wars. Augustus stabilized the frontiers of the empire by inserting trusted generals to manage these outposts. Throughout Rome, Augustus ordered the construction of many grand public buildings. The key to his success and the continued success of the empire after his passing was the civil service he created. A civil service is a body of paid workers who are in charge of managing departments of a government. For example, civil servants were in charge of monitoring and collecting the grain, collecting taxes, and running a postal service. The function of the civil service helped Rome operate efficiently, which allowed it to retain its power. So the idea of having all of these infrastructures in place really helped Rome blossom and develop, and the empire expand. Because you think about it, a running postal service, now, we got Amazon. It's really easy. But if you think of, if you think about back then you think about, oh, they had horses, they had elephants, they created chariots, they had the wheel, but they didn't have motorized vehicles, they didn't have airplanes. So when you have this expansive Roman Empire, and you're talking about thousands and thousands of miles, the idea of having a postal service and somebody who can courier, information, goods, services, important, strategies, that's important, because somebody who was in charge, who was given the position by the Roman emperor, could be trusted. So all these civil services are very important. During his lifetime, Augustus sought a successor within his own household. He was unlucky in this endeavor. Historians question whether there was conspiracy regarding his successor. The historian Suetonius said that Augustus' second wife, Livia, wanted one of her two sons from her first marriage to succeed the throne. Upon Augustus' death, the Senate awarded the position of the Principes to Tiberius, Livia's son. This created a hereditary monarchy in the empire. So remember before, emperor, he came into power at a time of war, and before it was just democracy. But now we're kind of getting this idea of a monarchy where the emperor is going to be passed, down along in in the household, in the home of the wealthy, of those in charge. The Roman world. Roman culture spread across the Mediterranean region. Most wealthy city dwellers also owned country estates called villas, which had libraries, art galleries, swimming pools, and athletic courts. In provinces such as Gaul, North Africa, Britannia, these estates grew much of the empire's food. Because of their rich resources, villas played an important role in keeping the arts and cultures alive in the provinces. The villas also helped expand Latin's prevalence as the common language. Within the strength and power, within the towns and in Rome, gladiatorial games were popular. Romans' interest in racing and athletics reflected their values. They valued strength and power, which were two qualities required to win chariot races or athletic games. Okay, and here's the Colosseum. In an effort to control the masses, the government provided free races, games, and holidays for citizens. Gladiatorial games became extremely popular in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. Most of the gladiators were forced to fight were slaves. Let me say that again. Most of the gladiators who were forced to fight were slaves. In Rome, the grandest stadium for viewing gladiatorial fights and races was the Colosseum, an arena that they could fit 50,000 people. Rich and poor alike enjoyed viewing reenactments of battles and gladiators fighting to the death. One mainstay of Roman life was slavery. Historians estimate that slaves made up 1/3 of Rome's population. Most of the slaves were conquered people from Rome's military expeditions. Children of slaves were also slaves. According to Roman law, a slave was the legal property of their master. A master could sell or free their slaves. While wealthy lived in extravagant lives, the majority of Roman citizens scraped by. The upper class frequently marveled and granted temples and palaces. They frequented them. They went to them often. They also frequented bathhouses and rich ornamentation, which means like nice jewelry and tunics of very pretty, luscious color. In addition, the wealthy hosted lavish dinners and included rare meats such as peacock and ostrich. I'm not eating a peacock. All right. Most city residents were unemployed. They received daily grain rations from the government. Poor Romans lived in wooden tenements. Fire was a constant threat in Rome because most people endured the poor living conditions. Now we're going to talk about Pompeii. So right here, this is a cement cast of a Pompeii victim. Pompeii was an ancient Roman city located near Naples, Italy. Today, it is the world's UNESCO site because it has provided archaeologists with remarkably well-preserved artifacts from Pax Romana. Pompeii appealed to the wealthy Romans for many reasons. For example, the city had a warm and pleasant climate. It was located along the Mediterranean and it had a port for access to trade goods. The surrounding fertile land produced fine vegetables and other foods. Pompeii's own industries also produced luxury items such as perfume. In addition, Pompeii boasted city amenities such as a theater, gladiators' court, and 3 public baths. The city had long history with Mount Vesuvius. In fact, its streets were paved with lava blocks. Still, despite several eruptions in 62 CE, residents were unprepared for the huge eruption of 79 CE. Mount Vesuvius erupted and buried the entire city under tons of ash. Residents of Pompeii were killed instantly, and the city vanished beneath the layers of ash. Air could not penetrate the layers of ash, so the town was ultimately preserved for modern archaeologists. Pompeii was initially discovered in the 18th century. Since then, it has become a significant tourist site. After Pompeii was discovered, archaeologists poured cement into voids of the ash layer to see the exact positions people had when they died. The castings of these molds prevented modern archaeologists from finding DNA remnants and using other techniques. Roman religion. And this is the last question that's on your little quiz. It says another aspect of Roman society was the belief in noumena, or powerful spirits. So when it's talking about powerful spirits and many spirits, Rome's names for these gods include Jupiter, Mars, and Neptune. Jupiter was the father of all gods. His wife Juno was the goddess who watched over all women. Neptune was the god of the sea. Mars was the god of war and masculinity. In addition, Minerva was the goddess of wisdom and art. These powerful deities were symbols of Roman Empire and thus linked to the government. Rome citizens were required to worship the gods in their homes as well as in public temples. Even the emperor came to be seen as a god, meaning that his people were required to worship him. So, polytheistic early Romans believed in many gods, okay, just like the Greeks. A significant development occurred during Pax Romana, the birth and growth of Christianity. Founded by Jesus Christ's followers, Christianity was a New World religion that grew out of Jerusalem and surrounded the region of Christ's birth and ministry. In the Roman Empire, Christians were heavily persecuted. Because Romans were polytheistic and viewed the emperor as a god, they punished Christians for believing in one God. Roman emperors like Nero actively persecuted and murdered Christians. Early Roman Christians moved below the city into catacombs in an attempt to worship without being arrested. Their religion endured persecution and over time became the dominant faith of the world. And as we end kind of our early Roman life and we start talking about later emperors of Rome, we're going to talk about the Byzantine Empire, and we're going to talk about how Christianity and everybody finally moved away from that polytheistic belief. Here's the catacombs. Here's a picture of the catacombs. It's said to where the early Roman Christians went down to worship. Okay. If you've got any questions, guys, let me know. All right. Bye.